Have you ever paused to wonder why, despite your efforts, people sometimes treat you with subtle disdain or indifference? Perhaps you work hard, you are competent, maybe even accomplished, yet respect feels elusive, as though it slips past your grasp while others, perhaps less deserving, seem to command it effortlessly. The truth is, respect is far deeper than surface appearances or fleeting achievements. It is not a favor granted, but a reflection of the solidity, discipline, and integrity of one's character. And it is fragile, eroded in ways we rarely notice. Small habits, seemingly harmless in isolation, accumulate silently and shape the narrative others write about us before we even speak. A complaint muttered too often, a glance of impatience, a careless word. These small actions broadcast messages about who we are. The world does not always articulate this judgment, but it notices, silently recording each breach of dignity. We may excuse ourselves, rationalize our behaviors, and hide from the truth. Yet these habits speak louder than words. The Stoics understood that external respect flows naturally from internal order. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that character, not circumstance, defines a person. Epictetus taught that it is not events themselves that harm us, but our responses to them. What we do, say, and how we carry ourselves are mirrors of our internal discipline. By examining our habits and consciously choosing virtue over weakness, we align ourselves not only with timeless wisdom, but with the way the world naturally responds to strength. In this guide, we explore 7 habits that, quietly, almost imperceptibly, diminish respect. They are not mere social faux pas. They are fractures in character. Complaining, gossip, excuses, blame, arrogance, lack of discipline, and victimhood all push others to look down on us, and worse, erode the dignity we hold within ourselves. But recognition is the first step toward mastery. By confronting these habits, reflecting on their origins, and replacing them with purposeful action, we begin a transformation that will touch every interaction, every perception, and every corner of our own lives. This journey is not easy. It demands honesty, courage, and the willingness to see ourselves without the comforting masks we often hide behind. But the reward is profound. Respect not as a transactional reward, but as a natural consequence of a life lived with virtue, clarity, and unshakable integrity. Complaining, the voice of powerlessness. Complaining is perhaps the most common trap into which we fall. It begins subtly, a sigh here, a muttered grievance there. At first it feels harmless, maybe even cathartic. But over time it becomes a signal, broadcast to the world, that we believe ourselves powerless in the face of circumstance. To complain habitually is to declare that we are at the mercy of life rather than its co-creators. Consider this. How do you feel around people who complain constantly? Even if their complaints are justified, do they inspire, uplift, or command admiration? Or do they leave you weary, weighed down, quietly measuring how little agency the speaker seems to possess? The Stoics understood that power lies not in controlling circumstances, but in controlling ourselves. Marcus Aurelius wrote that we should meet misfortune not with lamentation, but with understanding, seeing obstacles as opportunities to exercise virtue and strength. Complaining is often rooted in entitlement or fear. We expect life to conform to our desires and recoil when it does not. Yet adversity is inevitable, and growth is found not in resistance, but in engagement. When we replace complaints with reflection, we transform frustration into action. Ask yourself, what can I do right now to improve this situation? What lesson lies hidden here? In these moments, complaining becomes unnecessary, because the energy that would have been wasted on lamentation is redirected toward mastery and solution. Those who master this habit gain something far beyond social respect. They gain peace. A mind not scattered by complaint becomes clear, capable, and resolute. Conversations with such a person shift from blame to insight, from negativity to possibility. The world naturally gravitates toward those who carry composure and resilience, for they are the ones capable of real leadership and trust. To stop complaining is to reclaim your voice, your agency, and your dignity. 2. Gossip, the poisoned tongue. Gossip is a habit that masquerades as social connection, but it is in fact a betrayal of trust, both outward and inward. When we speak ill of others, we expose our own weaknesses, envy, bitterness, insecurity, more than the flaws of those we discuss. Epictetus warned that the untrained tongue reveals the untrained mind. Gossip is not about knowledge or insight. It is a reflection of our inability to master ourselves. The harm is double. First, others perceive the act as a breach of character. No one trusts someone who speaks of another's faults behind their back, because it silently promises that their own secrets, shortcomings, or confidences may one day be revealed. Second, we internally erode our own sense of virtue. By focusing attention on the failings of others, we neglect our own cultivation and feed a toxic cycle of judgment and resentment. In real life, gossip often emerges from a desire to feel superior or belong. A colleague's mistake, a friend's misfortune, a stranger's failure. These are all opportunities for the mind to construct a temporary illusion of dominance. But respect, the kind that endures, is reserved for those who elevate themselves through mastery, not at the expense of others. Silence, composure, and restraint convey strength far more than words ever could. To replace gossip, cultivate empathy and curiosity. Ask, what struggles might this person be facing? How can I redirect this energy to better my own life? By doing so, you shift the focus inward, toward improvement, while simultaneously fostering a presence that commands trust, admiration, and genuine respect. 3. Making excuses. Surrendering your agency. Excuses are the silent surrender of power. Every time we utter, "I couldn't because," or "it wasn't my fault," we are handing over our agency, placing responsibility outside ourselves. Life will always present obstacles, yet the truly respected individual demonstrates through action that control over one's choices is never relinquished. Excuses are a comforting shield against criticism, yet they reveal fear, weakness, and avoidance. They prevent reflection, learning, and growth. The Stoics understood that external circumstances are often beyond our control, but our reactions are entirely within it. To claim otherwise is to lie to oneself. Epictetus reminds us, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Excuses are chains. Action is freedom. In the real world, excuses create silent judgments. A colleague notices if you rarely take initiative. A friend notices if you seldom commit. A leader notices if you evade responsibility. Each excuse leaves a subtle mark, diminishing the trust others place in you. Those who refuse excuses, who take ownership even amid setbacks, signal reliability, strength, and integrity. To transform this habit, replace each excuse with a question: what can I do right now to change or improve this situation? By acting rather than rationalizing, you reclaim authority over your life and awaken the quiet admiration of those around you. 4. Blame. The evasion of responsibility. Closely intertwined with excuses is the act of blame. To blame is to project the cause of misfortune outward, denying personal accountability. In doing so, we not only forfeit control, but also signal to others that we are unreliable, unwilling to shoulder the weight of our choices. Respect is drawn to those who accept the consequences of their actions, even when it is inconvenient, uncomfortable, or humbling. Consider the subtle ways blame infiltrates daily life. A project that failed becomes the fault of a coworker. A personal failure becomes the fault of circumstances. A relationship falters, and the other person bears the weight. Each act of deflection chips away at credibility. Marcus Aurelius reflected on the necessity of looking inward, recognizing one's own role in every outcome, and using that understanding as a guide to growth. The truly respected do not seek scapegoats. They observe, learn, and act. They see failure not as an opportunity to hide, but as a mirror, reflecting areas where mastery, judgment, or discipline can be strengthened. By embracing responsibility, we not only repair character, we model courage and wisdom for others, establishing a presence that is quietly commanding, reliable, and ultimately inspiring. 5. Arrogance, the mask of insecurity. Arrogance is a loud declaration of inner weakness disguised as superiority. It is the opposite of confidence, for confidence requires no display. True mastery rests in humility, the quiet acknowledgement of one's limits, and the constant pursuit of growth. Socrates, famed for his wisdom, claimed he knew nothing, yet his humility allowed him to be heard above all others. Arrogance, in contrast, drives people away because it signals fragility beneath the mask. Arrogance alienates and diminishes respect because it prioritizes perception over substance. It is performative rather than constructive. People admire those who act with integrity, who pursue mastery, and who speak with clarity without needing applause. In life, arrogance often arises from fear, the fear of being seen as inadequate, unprepared, or vulnerable. The Stoics teach that to acknowledge our weaknesses without shame and to address them with discipline is the true path to strength. Replace arrogance with humility and deliberate action. Show, do not declare. Let your accomplishments, your poise, and your consistency speak. People will not just respect you, they will trust you, learn from you, and quietly admire the inner strength that arrogance so desperately tries to fake. Lack of discipline, the untamed soul. Discipline is the cornerstone of respect. Without it, even the most brilliant minds, the most charming personalities, or the most fortunate circumstances crumble under inconsistency and weakness. Discipline allows us to navigate adversity with calm, to act decisively when others hesitate, and to live in alignment with our highest principles. The undisciplined are pulled by impulses, distracted by every triviality, and vulnerable to their own whims. Aristotle reminded us that virtue is a habit, cultivated through deliberate practice. Without discipline, no habit is formed, no virtue sustained, and no life fully commanded. Those who fail to master themselves cannot inspire, lead, or gain trust. Respect flows naturally to those who exercise restraint, consistency, and foresight. In daily life, the consequences are clear: missed deadlines, broken promises, unkept commitments, wavering focus. These signal unreliability. By cultivating discipline, even in small, consistent ways, waking early, controlling impulses, following through on promises, we build an internal architecture that naturally commands admiration and trust. Discipline is not restriction, it is liberation. It is the freedom to act intentionally, the power to shape life rather than be shaped by it. 7. Playing the victim, choosing weakness over strength. The habit of playing the victim is perhaps the most corrosive. Life will invariably hurt, disappoint, and challenge us. But to adopt the identity of a victim is to allow suffering to define us, to surrender the possibility of agency. Victimhood is seductive because it excuses inaction, justifies bitterness, and temporarily shields from the discomfort of growth. Yet the Stoics remind us that suffering itself is not a misfortune. The true misfortune lies in surrendering to it. To rise above adversity is to reclaim power, to demonstrate that strength lies not in circumstance, but in response. Those who refuse victimhood are not always loud, but they are always observed, quietly commanding trust, admiration, and above all, respect. In real life, the victim is often the first to complain, the first to blame, and the last to act. Contrast this with someone who acknowledges hardship yet persists with integrity, patience, and focused action. The difference is stark, and the world responds accordingly. Victimhood diminishes, courage elevates. Choosing strength, even when the world seems unjust, is the hallmark of true character. These 7 habits: complaining, gossip, excuses, blame, arrogance, lack of discipline, and victimhood, are not mere social missteps. They are fractures in the foundation of character, quietly eroding respect, trust, and self-worth. Left unchecked, they diminish not only the way others see us, but the way we see ourselves. The Stoics teach that change is always possible, that character can be refined through deliberate, consistent action. To replace these habits with gratitude, silence, responsibility, humility, discipline, and courage is to reclaim power, dignity, and natural respect. Respect is not a reward. It is a reflection of the life you choose to live. Start today. Choose one habit, confront it honestly, and replace it with deliberate action. And if you are committed to the path of strength, wisdom, and mastery, join us at Stoic Thrive. Subscribe, learn, and grow, because the world does not need more noise. It needs more people who embody virtue, resilience, and unshakable integrity. Your transformation begins now.